Welcome to the Ricecast. We look and feel very different today, Pastor Willie. This is a cool little setup you have here.
Got a new little setup and trying to, I guess, do videos as well.
Why not? Yeah.
So you have to, put a nice shirt on and everything look good. We have to do a hairdo. Yep. We got to kind of get all that together.
Well, I was thinking about that. Now that we're going to start recording these, everybody knows there's a required haircut to be on the Ricecast.
Apparently.
I got to. I had to make
and
sure.
You qualify. So,
since I was 24. So there you go. And then I had to put a collared shirt on. I'm usually in a T-shirt.
Right. Yeah, I got to dress up looking important now.
Right. Yeah. Man, it's been a really cool week at Calvary. We got a cool week even coming up here at Calvary. We do something here once a year. We have a business meeting with our church. And can you help me understand when that is and what we're doing?
Yeah, it's always good. Again, for those who may be new on this, just to kind of, we just talk about things that are going on at Calvary and then things, that impact Calvary and then impact things that are just happening in current events. I love to first and foremost always think about what's happening in our church family and right here. And it's been, summer is like just one week after another. It's like getting on a roller coaster and you just kind of hang on for the ride. Next week, VBS, we can talk about that in a moment. Maybe just say something about that first, because to me, that's a huge week, maybe one of the biggest of the year. I always tell our team, I think we have more unchurched families and unchurched people on our campus, our physical campus, that we can interact with, connect with on the week of VBS than anything we do any other time of the year. And I guess, maybe that's not true. Maybe it's Christmas or Easter, but VBS brings them back a lot. And a lot of families from a lot of places. So it's such a huge week. Our people get so geared up. Our team does a great job, and that's next week at Calvary. And so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's a fantastic week. VBS is something I grew up doing, and I'm sure you probably, it's something that we've done as churches for a long time. And we do it very well here at Calvary. Our family ministry team, Christy Ridgway, Nancy, Nate, Tom, they all just, I tell no stop.
To me, it's got no signs of slowing down. All right. It's a great need. And we're actually doing 3 this year. As you know, we have in Clearwater at the morning, which is kind of the standard one that we've done for many years. And but also at Seminole campus, where you're the campus pastor, at night, an evening one, and also at the East Lake campus, an evening one. So we actually have 3 going simultaneously in 1 week. And we actually have people that I don't think you could work all 3, because 2 of those at the same time, but we do have people that probably work 2.
Oh, yeah.
And it's quite a week for them. But we will have hundreds of kids. It'd be north of 1,000 kids that'll be involved in our Vacation Bible School. And then when you throw the workers on top of that and the volunteers, it's quite an endeavor. It's next week, so appreciate everybody praying. And if you haven't signed up and you're interested in being a part of VBS at Calvary, you can come. You can sign up the day of.
Yes.
People sometimes ask us, is there a cost? Do you have to register? We can pre-register, but that may be closed. I don't know. But you can literally just come and register there on the first day.
Yeah, so pre-registration right now, as you guys are listening to this, is closed for Clearwater and Eastlake. It's actually still open for Seminole, because we have a huge community event the Sunday before VBS. So we keep ours open.
You want
to
keep it open.
Yeah. But one thing I appreciate about your leadership and the leadership of our senior staff here is you guys do a great job making sure that you come and check out each campus's VBS. And
we're kind of all in.
Yeah, everybody's all in here, and it's a fantastic thing. So, Clearwater, here at our Clearwater campus from 9:15 to 12:30, Monday through Friday, and then our Seminole and Eastlake campus from 6 to 8 next weekend. It's going to be fantastic. Yep. But even before we launch into VBS, we have something that our church does every year. It's an annual business meeting, and it's something that I've actually never seen before. I'm kind of newer into Calvary.
We call it
it's great.
Yeah, it's this Sunday night. It's our annual members meeting. And different churches do different things. If you have a church that believes at congregational government at some level, well, there needs to be a time when you have a congregational meeting. Some of us grew up where churches would do it every month, or then we went to once a quarter, and then it seemed like, hey, we could just do this once a year and make it a big one. And so we do it once a year unless we need to call a special one, and it is this Sunday night, June 22nd, if you're listening to this, Sunday night. And we encourage everybody from all the campuses to come. It's a night in which we talk about, we present the annual ministry plan budget We give everybody a financial update. We kind of elect people to the standing committees that we have. We have 5 basic standing committees. And we just kind of talk about church work. And I know that's not maybe the most exciting thing for people, but it's a necessary thing to do it so that we can do the work of the church. I like to distinguish between church work, that's stuff you got to do, so that we can do the work of the church. VBS, that's the work of the church. But the business meeting, the annual meeting, is kind of church work. But we need to do it, and we need to do it well. We want there to be transparency. We want there to be accountability. We want people to get answers to their questions. And we have some exciting things to share. We're always looking for 1 or 2 things that we haven't shared publicly yet. And there's a couple of things we're going to share Sunday night that we haven't shared yet publicly very much at all. One, I don't think we've shared at all, which is really, really great news. So come Sunday night, we also have, before the meeting starts at 6, it's on our Clearwater campus, but between 5 and 6 in our chapel, we will make available our executive pastor, our chief accounting officer, our member of finance committee, leader of deacons. We make some of these top-level leaders available for just any question, particularly when you think about finances and the budget. Some people might have a question, and they really don't want to answer it in a crowd with 500 people or something, or however many is going to come. But maybe they do have a question they want to ask in private or in a smaller group, and that way we don't have to bog down too much with too many questions when we have the big meeting. So if you've got a question about anything financial as it relates to Calvary, we want to give you as much information as you want. Really, we want to lean on the side of transparency. So if you have any questions about anything, you'll be getting, I think this week, all of our members will get an email. They'll have an attachment with that ministry plan budget. But come early and ask a question. And I think you'll find that our leaders are more than ready to try to get that information to you and help you with anything that you might be concerned about.
Well, and that's what I love about being part of Calvary is we are very transparent with every area of our ministry. And so I would challenge you, come and ask. This is not like don't think like you don't have the opportunity to do it. This is why we do things like this.
We don't want to have that attitude like, who are you to be asking? Right. We think it ought to be the opposite. And give people a chance to ask questions. And, some people are involved in these things. They know what's going on behind the scenes. And I think the more you know here, the more you walk away going, hey, I have a lot of confidence in that. But a lot of people aren't involved in that. And so this is the time of year when they come and go, hey, how are we doing financially? Did we meet our budget? By the way, spoiler alert, yes. But are we in trouble? Are we, where are we at? Where's the debt? What are we doing? What's the status of some of the projects I've heard about? And so on and so forth. So we want to invite people to come. We think it'll be a very encouraging night. Sunday night at 6 o'clock in the worship center at Clearwater. Come early at 5 if you have a question there in the chapel area. And then about 6 o'clock we get started. And that's for all of our campuses this Sunday night, our annual members meeting. Very important.
It'll be fantastic. So that's June 22nd. Again, Pastor said 6 o'clock. We'll be here early at 5 o'clock in the chapel, all on our Clearwater campus. But one thing I really wanted to focus on today, Pastor, is what you and I and a few other of our staff members, we actually flew out to Dallas. And we've talked about on the podcast the past few weeks.
We had some good Mexican food, didn't we? Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
Come on. We took you to Terry Black's.
Yes, we did. Had a little barbecue. Yeah. And so anyway, we were in Dallas.
Yeah. And it wasn't just for the food, but it was for the Southern Baptist Convention. And it's something that you invited me to go with you to 3 years ago. I'd never experienced anything like that before. And hey, I've become addicted to it. I love it. I love the camaraderie. I love the talk. I love the meetings, and I love meeting new people. But I would love just to spend the remainder of our time together today just kind of answering the question, what happened?
Yeah, what happened? And of course, we did a podcast on that beforehand. And again, this is kind of insider baseball. So we may talk about things that if people haven't been caught up on that, they may go, what are they talking about? Google is your friend. You can find some stuff because it's hard to lay all the groundwork. And I think, again, we did a podcast the last couple of weeks that people might want to go back. And this is kind of on the backside of it now, how it happened. But we do stay involved. We feel like if we're going to be involved in the cooperative network of Southern Baptist Convention, that we ought to be engaged and involved, and we ought to have a team that is informed. And so we do have a lot of fun, but as you will attest to, they're long days, and they're busy. It was kind of good to get home and rest a little bit. About 3 really long days there. anyway, got home, and we can talk about what happened.
Yeah, and it's funny you say long days. I always forget how long those days are. Like you're up at 6 a.m. and you need to be at the front doors at 7:15 if you're getting your seat well, and then I remember most of those 2 or 3 nights I didn't get home. I didn't get to the hotel like 10:30. Just smoked, Yeah,
it's if you participate, and we have fun. We do like eat a little barbecue and meet friends and all of that, but it is a business meeting. The front end of the convention, which is known as the Pastors Conference, and I didn't get to that much this year, but was always kind of the inspirational side, and then Tuesday and Wednesday is kind of more the business side.
Yeah, and I want to talk just a little, because I actually got to go a day early. I used to work in Dallas, as you know, and so I went a day early and went and visited my old church out there. Actually got me there in time for the Pastors Conference, and I thought that was just fantastic.
Always a great time.
The theme this year was worth following.
Yep.
And they just they had a couple pastors up there just working through the book of 2 Timothy. And really what the Pastors Conference is I've come to understand it's a time for us as pastors to just sit and be encouraged. I think so often we are pouring out, we are teaching, and it's a nice time to sit and worship together with other pastors, other leaders in ministry, and also get poured into. So Pastors Conference is great, and I would encourage anyone that, is the ability to go to the Southern Baptist Convention. That's a big piece too. But let's just jump into the business part of it. We've talked food, we've talked tacos, we've talked barbecue, but there was 3 things that we kind of highlighted over the past 2 weeks in our podcast where we had a deep heart for that we wanted to bring to the attention.
Concerned.
Yeah, we wanted to bring to the attention of our people listening here and even our brothers and sisters at the convention. So let's just start with what we called the law amendment last time. If you want
there are a couple of things. I told somebody asked me how it went. I said, well, it was good, the bad, and the ugly, and before we even jump in there, I mean, the good, I thought, our President Clint Presley, first of all, did a great job. Fantastic. I love Clint. He's a friend, and he did super. And we passed some really strong resolutions that are statements that get put out there, one calling for the overturn of the Oberfeld decision, legalizing gay marriage. I thought that was a strong command. There were several others that were good, strong resolutions. They were not divisive at all, as sometimes they can be. So there is, in some ways, if you look at it in one level, a lot of unity. You still see a very conservative group, a very biblically based group, and a lot of churches that are wanting to be on mission together. So there's a lot of good things to celebrate. And there were some good reports to celebrate. But there were 3 issues that have caused a little bit of controversy, and one of those you've already referenced was the law amendment, which was also the Sanchez Amendment this year. And again, I know for people who are uninformed, all this sounds like complex stuff, but it basically is the concern that some Baptists have about the growing number of churches that use the title pastor and apply it to women. There are not a lot of churches that I know of, in fact, I know of none, where you have a woman serving as what sometimes is called the senior pastor, the primary pastor, leader of the congregation. But there are quite a lot of churches that are using the title pastor to apply to women staff members or women who sometimes teach on Sunday morning. And this is, we talked about this, so it won't cover the old ground. But this has caused a concern about, are Southern Baptists softening on this issue? And are they moving in a concerning direction? And a lot of people are concerned about that, and I am. I think this is a very important direction. Again, we talked about it last week. People can go back and listen. Unfortunately, the Law Sanchez Amendment, which was brought up for a second time, failed again to get the necessary 2/3 to be an amendment, that is not an amendment, a bylaw in the Southern Baptist Convention, which 61% were in favor of it, but it needed 66% to be a bylaw. And the point was, let's put a bylaw in the SBC that says no women pastors. That we just think that's a biblical conviction. It's part of God's beautiful design. It's part of what the Scripture plainly articulates, and we do think it's an issue of biblical authority and integrity in the church. As we dealt with that more at length. So here we're kind of the fallout. It didn't get 2/3. I kind of thought it would, and I know everybody's got their take on it, so we'll share We'll share ours.
Yeah.
It's our podcast. We can share whatever we want, I
It's
guess.
your podcast. Yeah, it's great. It's the Ricecast.
I was disappointed. Dr. Org, who's the president of the executive committee, I felt like, and I like Dr. Org. I think he's a good man. I think he's been putting a really hard job.
Yeah.
But I thought he kind of put his finger on the scale, and he had some concerns about, well, if we do this, you might get sued, and I didn't understand that. With all due respect, that doesn't make a bit of sense to me. I mean, I think you ought to listen when people warn you about legal liabilities, but that one makes no sense. We have other things in the bylaws that churches can be held accountable to. And I'm not sure why adding one all of a sudden that's certainly consistent with our statement of faith would create a legal culpability. That, to me, was a bit of a straw man. And unfortunately, it kept us from getting 2/3 necessary to put it as a bylaw. So the bottom line is a little confusing. And I don't know what headlines you read or, Southern Baptists overwhelmingly do not endorse women pastors. That's a fact. But it is also a fact that we have refused to make it a bylaw. Both of those things, which seem contradictory, are true. More than 60% of the convention supports it, which means those people, to me, who have kept it from being 2/3, I kind of feel like the onus is on them in a way. It's like, okay, you kept it from being 2/3, but you're in the minority.
Right.
A significant majority of Southern Baptists want to see something with teeth in it that says, we do not believe that ordaining and promoting women pastors is a biblical practice. We don't want to see it within our Southern Baptist Fellowship. We think it's taking us down a road we don't want to go. And we have not yet been able to find something with teeth in it. We couldn't get the bylaw. So it's kind of a troubling scenario there where you have a clear majority, but enough of the minority has kept the majority from exercising its will. To me, that's very problematic.
What do you think with that, 40 some odd percent? What do you think is their concern about passing this?
I think they think it will overreach. I think they again, we heard one from Dr. Org that somebody might sue us. Goodness, we've had enough other lawsuits that we just blew through the caution signs on that.
Right.
And I don't know why all of a sudden this one we would. That makes no sense to me. But I do think there are people who have said they worry about overreach. They worry about somebody using this to kind of start hunting down women who are on staff or women who are in ministry positions and saying, see, they're really a pastor. And we talked about this last week. I don't see that happening. No. Look, anytime you make a statement or you pass a bylaw or something like that, obviously there are going to be some situations maybe that warrant a more careful look. That's fine. You can have a careful look. I don't see people using it to overreach and say that there are no place for women to serve in Christian ministry settings. I think it is a strong conviction that the role of pastor is defined in the New Testament. It is a very important role. It's synonymous with elder overseer, and that is, as Scripture says, reserved for men. That's a role that God has called men to fill in the church. I believe that. I believe that's a New Testament doctrine. That has been the doctrine that most Christians throughout most history have held. That's why our Roman Catholic friends only have male priests, and many other expressions of Christianity. So I think to answer your question, I think the people that have kept it from being a bylaw believe it will be used there will be an overreach, that it will be used in an unfair and punitive fashion. And I don't think that. I think, again, when you have people weaving all over traffic, you need clear lines on the road.
I agree.
And this, to me, is putting a clear line on the road that allows people to find their lane, understand, am I in this lane or am I in this lane? And kindness, clarity is kindness. Clarity is kindness. This is what we believe. This is how we're going to practice. Now find your lane and run in it.
Right. Well, and what I appreciate about your leadership, and because you could easily even fall into, hey, we don't want people to look into Calvary because they can think, oh, well, they're serving fast, because we have some strong women on your staff that are in very high leadership positions, but they're not pastors.
Right.
And they know that, and they lead in that way, which is what I love about you. You're not saying women don't have a place in ministry. No, they have a great place.
I think very few Southern Baptists are saying that.
Right.
In fact, I'm not sure of any that are saying that, but there might be some that are extreme in that regard. But again, a pastor, I tried to explain this, I don't know if I've done a good job, is more than just the sum of the parts. It's more than just, well, they have a teaching gift and they have some administrative oversight, or maybe they have a little pastoral care skill. And you add up all those three, boom, presto, you got a pastor. No, a pastor is somebody who meets certain moral character qualifications in the New Testament, but then fulfills a role that is overseeing the church. It's when the church calls and appoints someone to be an overseer. So there are many women who have many spiritual gifts, and some of those can be exercised in even a professional or vocational way. That doesn't make you a pastor. And that's why the term matters. And that's why the term should be used carefully and not carelessly. And I think in a lot of cases, people are using it carelessly to describe any pastoral staff member. The problem is some people are not using, first of all, if it's a careless use of the word, that is a problem because you're opening the door to a drift, you're opening the door to confusion. But there are other people who are not using it careless. I think they know exactly what they're doing. And as I said, I think earlier, if you have a bunch of women who are associate pastors or teaching pastors or whatever pastor, it won't be long before they're senior pastor. In fact, if you can go one step, then you need to be able to go all the way.
Sure.
So, and then you're asking yourself, do you care what the Bible says about this? Do you care what the New Testament clearly teaches about this? So I certainly think there are many cases that women can serve and exercise great spiritual gifts, and in a vocational sense even, particularly on church staffs that get large and complex, and you have a lot of jobs like we do. But that doesn't make them a pastor.
Good word.
And I think Southern Baptists ought to be clear on what we believe about pastors and who is qualified to serve as pastors. It's in our statement of faith, and it either means something or it doesn't, and I think it does.
That's a good word. Well, I appreciate the clarity, and then obviously, letting me know and letting us know how that situation took place. Yeah,
it's going to happen. This tension is going to have to be solved.
Yeah.
We're not just going to keep doing these 60-40 votes. Somehow we got to solve this. I've got some ideas about that, but we don't have time to go into all that. And I may share them at some point with some people in leadership. But I think we got to find a way where the majority of people who want to be very clear on this can get their way and be very clear on this.
Do you think it just the Law Sanchez next last name amendment, like it just keeps going that way, or
Law Sanchez Pigsley?
Yeah, I don't know about all that.
It's possible, but I think everybody needs to get in a room and say, okay, well, how are we going to figure this out so that we don't just keep doing this? But if we don't, what I would say to those who keep stopping it is if we don't figure it out, then it's going to keep going, and people are going to say, hey, we're very, very close. We only needed 300 or 400 more votes, so let's get 300 or 400 more votes. Yeah. The convention's in Florida next year. It's a very conservative state. Of course, it was in Texas this year, but hey, let's that we're just going to keep doing this unless everybody gets in a room and says, okay, how can we solve this problem in a way that an overwhelming majority of people can support? I think there's a way, and maybe sometime I'll share some thoughts on that.
That'd be great. I'd like to move to the next topic that we talked about a few weeks ago. And for me, I feel like this one did not get as much attention this year as the other things that were brought to the mic. But it was the financial transparency, and we were pretty vocal about this on the podcast, and you've talked about it a lot as well. So can you just give us a brief understanding of what that was and then what happened?
Again, a lot of the Southern Baptist people know a guy named Rhett Burns is a South Carolina pastor who had not to be confused with Rhett Butler, but he had an effort to ask our entities. And a lot of people, Southern Baptist Convention is a very confusing polity. What we have are entities. We have 6 seminaries, we have 2 mission boards, we have a publishing company, we have an annuity board, we have an ethics and religious liberty commission. We have these entities. They each have a board of trustees. They're each legal entities, but they are ultimately owned by the Southern Baptist Convention, who exercises authority through the trustees boards. So there's been some questions about financial transparency. Are we getting enough information about how the money is being spent and what decisions are being made? And this pastor in South Carolina raised some concerns. He wanted us to follow some of the basic practices that nonprofits have to follow. And I thought it was a good idea. Honestly, to me, wasn't asking for all that much. But the entities and the leadership and sometimes called the platform, they've been resistant to that. And they were able to kind of shut it down. There was, an appeal to an amendment. I think there was a vote. It didn't pass. So it's kind of languishing there. I don't know what will happen in the future. And again, I want to say that our entities do have trustees. They do report to the trustees. I'm not trying to suggest anything else. I just think there are rank and file pastors who say we'd like a little more transparency. We would like to be able to ask questions and get a little more answers. And not just be told, well, trust the trustees. And we talked about this before, but that didn't pass. So I don't know. Again, I don't think that one's going away either. I think we're in an era where people expect high levels of transparency. Trust follows transparency. I really believe that. If you want more trust, be more transparent. And particularly when trust is low and because of some bad decisions that have happened. And there have been some bad decisions over the last couple of years that cost us money, that were really not wise decisions. And so I think the way to rebuild that trust is to lean on the side of transparency. So again, I would say to those who have been able to hold off those forces asking for more transparency, if I were giving them advice, I don't know if they're listening to me. I don't know anybody much, listen to us maybe, but they ought to take the initiative here. They ought to get in a room with the people who are asking for these things and say, okay, we didn't want to do that, but here's what we can do.
Yeah.
Find a way forward. Just don't keep telling people no and slamming the door in their face.
No, because that's just going to breed more and more contention, and then more
I think it is.
lack of trust.
I think it is. And if you keep doing that, eventually somebody once told me in leadership, if you don't listen to the whispers, one day you'll hear the screams.
Dang, that's good.
And I think it's more than whispers that are being ignored right now. And if you keep ignoring that, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe everybody just goes away and they're happy. But I don't know. I think this is too reasonable a request, and I don't think they're going to go away. I don't know if it's going to come up the same way next year, but I just wish our leaders would say, hey, what information do people want to know? We don't have anything to hide, so let's put it out there. And what some people are saying, yeah, well, you're handing the critics information. Well, they're out there anyway. Your critics are out there criticizing you. So you might as well give them something to talk about, might as well give them some new information. But the way to disarm a lot of critics is to show transparency, accountability, and build trust.
It comes down to authenticity as well.
I think it does.
It really does.
I think it does. And I think we need a little more of that. So we didn't resolve that one either.
And but at the end of the day, the conversations are still happening.
The conversations are happening.
Which is huge. And then what I want to focus the majority of our time on is, I'm going to call, this is where you really kind of stepped up to the plate. You even made a motion at the mic, and I'm going to kind of let you take off from there and talk about, your motion and why you said, hey, I meant to abolish the ERLC.
Well, the ERLC is the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission of the SBC. They've been at the heart of so many divisive issues in the last 5, 6, 7 years, and we don't have time to go into all of that. It's been written about. They have taken funding from some sources that really, they shouldn't be taking any funding from. At times, they've not been as strong on positions as they needed to be. At times, they pursued positions that were just divisive in SBC life. And again, a Southern Baptist family will know some of the history of that. This was a motion made the year before. I was the one this year who made it from the microphone. When we did this a week or so ago, I thought that might happen, but I wasn't going to go out there and say that I was the one going to do it. But the motion was made. I made the motion to abolish the ERLC. And as I said in the speech, the reason wasn't to abolish the ERLC. It's a bylaw mechanism because you had to vote 2 years in a row to abolish an entity. So what we wanted to do, those of us who were supporting this, and as you know, it failed, but we got 43% of the vote. It failed 43 to 57. But the people voting for it, and I made it very clear, I tried to, was that this was a mechanism for accountability. What we hoped was that the ERLC would get a message. They can't keep doing business as usual. They've lost the confidence of a lot of Southern Baptists. There need to be some radical changes there. And if the motion to abolish had passed, it would have forced the hand of the trustee board and the ERLC to realize we've lost the confidence of Southern Baptists, and we got to change. We got to change. And that's what I had hoped, and I just felt like, hey, it's time to everybody just to kind of pull, hitch up their britches and do the job, as they used to say. We just got to do the job, and it may be uncomfortable, but somebody's got to do it. But we lost 57 to 43. But 43% of the convention was willing to vote to abolish the convention. And I don't know if we have any SBC friends listening to this, but I promise you there are people in strategic roles. I don't want to say too much there, but high-level people who talked to me afterwards, and they were very much supportive of that. And why they're not public on that more is up to them, and I understand some people have hard, they're in positions where it's harder to be public on some of these things. I didn't care. It's like, I can just get up there and say it. But I can promise you there are people in high levels of leadership in the SBC that were supporting that motion, wanted it to pass, and believe it needs to pass. And there were people who didn't vote for it that I've also talked to in high levels because they just felt like it was too extreme. But the truth is they want the same thing that we want. They want the ERLC to get the message and be overhauled, and they're hoping that will be the case.
Well, and here's my question, because, your motion was to abolish the ERLC. Is there a way to reform the ERLC without that verbiage?
Well,
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
It's just a little harder, again, and I realize it can be lost on people. There's no way you can get up and say a motion to reform the ERLC, because what does that mean? And it's hard to, on the convention, you really don't have the right to instruct the trustees on what to do. It gets referred to the trustees. So you can make suggestions, you can make recommendations, you can say, I make a motion that all the ERLC staff has to wear blue hats and cheer for the Florida Gators or something like that, which is not a bad motion, by the way.
It's going to be a good year for it. So, yeah.
You could do something like that. Well, what that's going to do is that motion is going to be referred to the trustee board, and they're going to say, no, we got a lot of Tennessee fans. We're not going to cheer for the Gators. So whatever. It's probably a bad metaphor, but you can tell football season's coming. So we're starting to think about all that. But so there's really not a way to do that from the floor, except the motion to abolish is kind of a nuclear option. But I also hoped, whether it passed or not, I didn't know if it would pass. I knew it would be a steep hill, but I hope that it would send the message they have to do something. And I hope that message has been sent. The real work of reform needs to be done by the trustees, to answer your question. There are trustees of the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission, and here's what they need to understand, and all trustees in the Southern Baptist Convention need to understand. You don't work for that entity. It's not your job to be a PR arm for that entity, even though sometimes you are, because you are proud of it, you want to promote it, and so forth. And I'm not saying that's wrong in its time and place, but the primary job of the trustee is to exercise oversight on behalf of the convention of that particular entity, to make the decisions that the convention would make if they could all sit in those rooms. But to do that, you've got to lean in and you've got to ask the hard questions, and sometimes you got to make the hard decisions. You can't go to those meetings just wanting to be, hey, let's all get along and eat a steak dinner. You got to go to those meetings and say, hey, I think some of these things that are out on the floor we need to listen to. And in terms of the ERLC, I don't even know who most of the trustees are. I'm sure they're wonderful people. But they need to hear that twice, 2 years in a row, 40% and more have voted. Last year it was just a ballot vote, but I would estimate about 40%. This year, 43%, because it was a ballot vote, said your entity has been so divisive, we approve a motion to abolish. I've never seen that in SBC life in my lifetime. If you're a trustee and you miss that message, with all due respect, you are just being that's being negligent. You got to get that message. And maybe you didn't like the motion to abolish, but you need to be calling. If I were on that board right now, or I were working for the ERLC right now, I'd be calling an emergency meeting. Don't wait for the next meeting. When's the first time we can all gather? And I would be asking them, what did we learn? What has gone wrong? Why have we lost the confidence of 43% of the convention? And by the way, you've lost the confidence of more than that, because there are a lot of people that didn't want to vote for abolish, but they know there has to be changes. And so you got to sit in a room and go, how have we lost our constituency? How do we lose them? And it's not a hard question to answer. I can do that too. But they need to ask that question, and they need to look at those answers, and they need to make the changes. And so the hopeful side of me is that, hey, the message was sent and they're going to make changes in the next year. I'm not sure how they can just keep ignoring it. But I don't know. I've also heard that they kind of dug in and feel like they've won, and they put out some press statements, and everything is great. And I just think you're whistling past the graveyard if that's the case.
Well, so those are the three topics that we covered in the past 3 weeks. Obviously, the law amendment, financial transparency, and the ERLC. And as you stated, all three of those failed to pass. So just a personal question for you, like, how are you feeling after that, like towards the SBC and just the convention?
I love the Southern Baptist Convention. We have missionaries around the world. We're planting churches. We have the largest church planting network in America. We have seminaries. I love the fellowship of the Southern Baptist Convention. And I'm still hopeful. I'm disappointed, but I'm hopeful. I'm disappointed because it's not as conservative. I don't know if I've said this to anyone, but I'll say it here. I don't think it's as conservative a convention as it once was. I think that's what you have to conclude. The Southern Baptist Convention of Dr. Adrian Rogers and Dr. Charles Stanley and Dr. Jerry Vines in the 80s and 90s, they would have voted to abolish the ERLC. No doubt in my mind. They did it, only it was called the Baptist Joint Committee on Public Affairs back then. You have to be a real nerd in SBC life to know what I'm talking about there. But they literally did it. They literally did it. It was a different kind of abolish. They voted to defund it. But there was a Baptist Joint Committee on Public Affairs that the historians can look all of that up. If you know, they did it. They would have voted for that Law Sanchez Amendment. Absolutely. The convention I grew up in would have absolutely gone, no, this is a no-brainer. So the fact that we are struggling to do, to me, it's kind of like a golfer struggling to hit a 3-foot putt. It's like, brother, if you can't sink this one, we got, I don't know, you're ready for the course, right? And we're struggling to sink some things that to me are just easy. That'll be checked off and easy. And so we're just kind of struggling to get out of the gate on some of this. So I don't think we're as concerned. I think there has been a drift. I think we aren't as conservative as we once were. I don't think we're a liberal convention. I don't think our churches are going left or all going woke. But I do think we got caught in a cultural riptide in the last 10 years that carried us a little bit in places we didn't want to go. And now we're struggling to get back on track. And I think these reform movements are not going away. They may take different expressions. They may raise their head differently. But these are three things: financial transparency, being clear about who should be a pastor, reforming the ERLC. These are three things that can be done. I predict they will be done at some level and some point. They should be done, and they should be done fast. And even if I was on the winning side of those votes, I would be motivated to figure out how to get those things done, because until those things get done, we are not going to have the kind of unity and momentum that we need to have. You're just going to continue to have this fracture of fellowship. And I don't think it's that ugly. I don't think people are not getting along. I just think, hey, there's some stress right now in the relationship in the Southern Baptist Convention. Cooperative program giving, I think, is down. I think I'm correct in saying that. And over the 10 to 15-year trajectory, it's down. So a lot of things are up. There's some good things. I think attendance was up, baptisms were up, church planting was up. So those are great signs. But there's some giving that's not up. And so I think until we get some of these, again, to me, these are small things. Until we get some of these small things fixed, I don't know how we work on the big things. So we got to deal this, and I predict at some level those things are going to be addressed. At some point, those things are going to be done. So if you've stopped them from getting done, I think you ought to get in a room and say, okay, how can we get these things done in a way everybody can get together? That's my opinion.
No, that's a good word, Pastor. I think you've said this to us a couple times, and I'm sure I'll get the words wrong, but we don't drift towards being more conservative. Like, those are daily choices we have to make. And what happens if we don't fix this drift is the question.
You never, Jimmy Draper said it one time, and I never forgot it. You never drift anywhere worth going. Yeah. And when I heard that, I about fell out of my chair. Unbelievable. You never drift anywhere worth going. You have to move on purpose in the right ways. You never drift toward mission. If you just let things take their course, every church will drift away from mission. You never drift toward evangelism, for instance. You never drift toward accountability. You drift away from it. You never drift toward doctrinal integrity and biblical faithfulness. When you throw words like liberal, conservative, I know they get overused and lose their meaning, but we're talking about biblical conviction, biblical faithfulness. You never drift toward those things. The culture isn't going to take you and move you in that direction. Mm-hmm. The culture is always going to move you in the opposite direction. And so we're going to have to move with some deliberation and some purpose and some intentionality if we're going to get those things fixed. And we need to get those things fixed.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Well, Pastor, I appreciate. I would say just one thing. I shared this with you yesterday, I believe. One concern I had is a little over 10,000 messengers at the Southern Baptist Convention this year in Dallas.
Yep.
And each vote, there was, I would say,
a lot of people.
6,000+ voted around there. So you're talking like close to 4,000 people didn't vote.
A lot of people eat barbecue somewhere, and look, part of this, I get it, because I've been going, as I told you, I think last week, since 1986 was my first one, and I've only missed 3. 1986. So next year will be 40 years since I went to my first one, and I've missed 3. So I guess if I can do the math, what is that, 37 or something? And I get it. Part of it, through the years, sometimes there weren't even that big issues, it didn't seem like. And part of the fun was, it's like a big family reunion. You see friends you went to college with, you see friends you went to seminary with, you see friends you only see once in a while, pastors that are in other places, and there's a lot of fellowship. Everybody wants to go out and eat and hang out and tell stories and find out what's going on. A lot of networking goes on, and I mean in a good way. Yeah. Like we had some of our missions guys there. They're working with the IMB and the NAM, and they're at this luncheon and that gathering, and they're networking, and that's why we want our team to go. So a lot of good things happen out in the hallway and in the exhibit hall and in the hotel lobby. Those are good conversations. But you're right. If you go and you're going to register and your church is going to send you, it seems like you ought to pay attention when the big votes are happening, and you ought to be in the room. And it did seem like, my goodness, I think the Law Sanchez thing, somebody told me 400 votes would have changed it.
Yep.
And you had a couple thousand people there out doing something else. I don't know. So our team, I will say this, our team, and we sent a full squad of 12. Actually, we even had some that were visitors because we had more go than could be messengers. But they were all there, right? I mean, we were sitting in there. Those seats get hard after a while, and you're in there for a long time. And I think we were there for all the important bits. And I appreciate that. Our team is engaged. They were leaning in. They think, hey, this matters. And I know people can get cynical and go, I got more important things to do. But we've all seen institutions, and we lamented their decline. And how many of us have been to, I was talking to our friend Carl Porter from England, and he's here on our team now, and he knows a lot about the Church of England. And I was talking about one of the beautiful buildings there, and he said, what the sad thing is that they don't even preach the gospel there. And tourists come, they see the beautiful building, but it's a very left-wing church now. And you see things like that. You can go all over Europe, and you see it even in America, and you lament, wow, once upon a time somebody put a church here. They were preaching the gospel, and now they're who knows what they're preaching. And we grieve that. Well, you know what happened? At the moment, there was probably a moment in the history of those institutions when important things were on the line, and some good people leaned out. They didn't get involved. And as we said, you never drift anywhere worth going. So if the people with conviction lean out and say, nah, then you know what? What are you going to do 50 years from now when the Southern Baptist Convention is just another apostate left-wing church in America? It could happen. It could happen. Don't laugh. It could happen. And what are you going to say? You're going to say, well, there was a time way back there where there were some important decisions being made, but we had to go get barbecue, or we were too busy to go and care. And we lost the institution. We lost the seminaries. We lost our mission boards. I saw the other day, I think I'm correct in this, that the Presbyterian Church USA, which is a very liberal mainline denomination, brought their last missionary home. I think I saw that.
Wow.
Somebody can fact check me on it.
Yeah.
But I believe that they had one last missionary on the field and brought him home. I'm not sure what they've been doing, but that denomination had drifted far, far to the left. And so the Great Commission suffers and the mission suffers, and they had one left, brought him home. Well, I don't want somebody, my grandchildren, to say, we brought the last Baptist missionary home because they just died. The last guy out turned out the lights. I'd like to leave. This is the largest missionary sending force in Christendom, as far as I know. I don't want the last missionary to come home. I don't want to turn out the lights. I don't want to turn out the lights in the seminary and go, just another left-wing seminary waving whoever's flag will be out there 50 years from now. I'd like to know they're gospel sound, they're doctrinally sound, they're on mission. And in order to get that result, good people have to lean in and make good decisions, and sometimes you have to make hard decisions. Yeah. And so I think we're at one of those junctures in Southern Baptist life.
Well, that's such a good word. And the funny thing is next year the distraction outside the convention hall is going to be even larger with Disney World right across the street.
Disney World. It's going to be Orlando, Florida.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be in our backyard.
Yep.
And we got a great Florida Baptist convention, and all of our Florida Baptist guys are excited about that. And we'll be represented. Aaron Bergner is a friend of mine. He's at the Lakes Church in Lakeland, and he's a great pastor. He's leading the Pastors Conference. Clint Presley will be the president again next year. So it'll be a big year, and maybe we can get some better outcomes next year. Yeah. And maybe even before we get, what I'd really hope is that we don't have a bunch of divisive votes. What I'd really hope is that some people get in the room and solve these problems so that by the time we get to Orlando, hey, we can say, hey, we do have increased financial transparency, and we have dealt with the issue of who is a pastor, and we've dealt with some of these things, and the trustees at the ERLC took some concrete steps to kind of win back some confidence, and we can all go in there and, hey, maybe we'll get the votes over quick and we can go to Disney World.
Yeah, I would say let's go to Disney World.
Yeah.
Disney World, I apologize. But Pastor, again, I can't tell how much I appreciate your time and your willingness to talk. Obviously, this new structure, have a little video out there. It's kind of
sorry,
neat.
somebody told me, well, you got a face for radio. So I don't know if it's
we'll see what happens.
Or not. But, and I know if you've listened the last couple of weeks, you may go, this is a really nerdy discussion. I don't even know what you're talking about. And we don't do that every week, because a lot of weeks we're talking about what's happening here at Calvary. We're talking about an issue that we've talked about in the message or something. So anyway, thanks for hanging in there for these these conversations.
It's been great. And just a reminder, we talked about at the beginning of the podcast, this coming Sunday, June 22nd, is our annual business meeting. I would encourage you, come early if you have questions. If you're a member of Calvary, you'll be getting an email from us with all the financials that you would like to look over, so you can come to our chapel at our Clearwater campus at 5 o'clock and have any questions you want answered. And then at 6 o'clock, our meeting starts, and there's actually open mics there as well if you have different questions.
It's an opportunity to ask questions.
Yep. So it's going to be a great time. It's an encouraging time to be part of Calvary, and we are just so thankful for you, Pastor, your leadership and your willingness to just talk to us. So we'll see you guys next week here on the podcast. Have a great week, and know you are being prayed for often.